Your Worship, we are now live.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Clerk, and to anyone at home watching, our apologies, a slight technical error, but we've got that fixed, so we'll call this meeting to order, and I'll look to Councillor DeLeo for the land acknowledgement. Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. The town of Wasaga Beach acknowledges it is located upon the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people of the Three Fires Confederacy. We also acknowledge that the people of the Wyandot Nation also inhabited these lands. We acknowledge that these nations were sovereign nations existing before the arrival of settlers. We respect the spiritual interconnection among these nations to the land and to the water. We also acknowledge that waterways near us have a long history predating European arrival. Since time immemorial, waterways were the lifeblood of the Indigenous people by trade and hunting routes. We are dedicated to inclusivity of First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in our future stewardship of the land and the longest freshwater beach in the world. In the spirit of reconciliation, we welcome the opportunity of learning to be sustainable caretakers of the land and waterways for all future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Megwitch, Councillor. And moving on to item number 2, proclamations. We have no proclamations today. Item number 3 is disclosure of pecuniary interest. I have none before me at this time. If at some point throughout the meeting, Councillor, you feel you have a pecuniary interest, please let us know at that time. Item number 4 is the adoption of the agenda, and before I carry on with the motion, I'll look to our clerk with respect to the adoption of the agenda. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. Administration is requesting 2 additions to the regular agenda under Government Relations. Both items are updates and include item 9.2, January and February Council meeting update by the Director of Legislative Services Clerk. And the other item is item 9.3, Hanukkah activities update. By our special events coordinator. So in order to include these in the agenda, the procedure bylaw requires a 2/3 vote as these items are not listed on the agenda. We do have a motion in front of council that government relations items 9.2 January and February 2025 council meeting update and 9.3 Hanukkah activities update be added to the December 12th 2024 council meeting agenda.
Sorry, Councillor, you've heard that motion. We need a 2/3 vote for this. Could I have a mover and a seconder to get this on the floor? Moved by Councillor Timms and seconded by Deputy Mayor Snell. All in favor? That carries unanimously, Madam Clerk. We'll now move on to the recommended motion that the contents of the agenda for December 12, 2024, as approved, as circulated. Could I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Moved by Councillor Eagle, seconded by Councillor Belanger. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Item number 5 is approval of the minutes, and that the minutes of the council meeting held on November the 28th, 2024 be approved as circulated. Questions or comments on those minutes? Mover and a seconder for this, please. Councillor White, Councillor DeLeo, all in favor? That carries unanimously. Item number 5.2 is the regular council meeting minutes of November the 28th. And the motion is that the minutes of the regular council meeting held November 28, 2024 are hereby adopted as circulated. Questions or comments on those minutes? Seeing none, mover and a seconder, please. Councillor Ego and Councillor Belanger, all in favor? That carries unanimously. Item number 6 is public meetings, and there are no public meetings today. And then item number 7 is the presentations. Our first presentation is Mr. Greg Hankio, Executive Consultant of Emergency Management Group, and it's with respect to the Town of Wasaga Beach Fire Master Plan. And I see Greg is with us there online, and so I'll turn the floor over to Chief McWilliams to introduce Greg again, and we'll move forward with this presentation. Chief?
Good morning, Your Worship, members of council, and all those joining us today. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to provide this presentation for our Fire Master Plan. In January 2024, the Fire Department released a request for proposal to complete our community risk assessment, as well as a Fire Master Plan. The RFP was awarded to Emergency Management Group, who provided a team of consultants to work with our Fire Department staff for the past 11 months. The Fire Master Plan represents a milestone in the 76-year history of the Fire Department, because it's the first time that we have have invested in an in-depth planning exercise to help prepare ourselves for the future growth of the municipality. The plan includes 60 recommendations, and with Council's ongoing support, these recommendations will be considered during the next 10 years as the community continues to grow and annual budget permits. I would like to thank a number of different groups for their assistance with this significant undertaking. So all members of the Wasaga Beach Fire Department, including the Wasaga Beach Professional Firefighters Association, the Wasaga Beach Volunteer Firefighters Association, all department heads, and specifically the staff from the Treasury Department, the CAO's office, members of council, and the public as well, who helped by participating in a number of surveys that were available. Finally, I'd like to thank the team from Emergency Management Group for their assistance. So without further ado, I will introduce Greg Henkio, who's online with us today. He is our lead consultant for this project with Emergency Management Group, and he is the former fire chief of Thunder Bay, retiring last year after 32 years of service in the fire service. Welcome, Greg.
Through your worship, thank you, Chief Williams, for the introduction. Prior to getting going here, I'm just going to pull up the slide presentation and just confirm that everybody can see it.
Yes, we can, Greg.
Just going to start the slideshow. Okay, perfect. So thank you again, Chief, for the introduction. Your worship, I'd just like to reiterate my thanks without going into great detail with respect to all the parties that the chief has already mentioned, but extend EMG's thanks as well for everyone that actively participated in the data collection process for the development of this fire master plan. It goes without saying that you have a very professional group of people within Wasaga Beach, and their support was greatly appreciated. I too would like to build on the chief's comments regarding the fact that this is the Wasaga Beach Fire Department's first master fire plan. And with the growth that's anticipated to take place in Wasaga Beach, I mean, I think it really comes at an opportune time. Notwithstanding the outcome of the 60 recommendations that are contained within the report, your worship and the members of council should be congratulated really for embarking on this process, and really what you've done is established a framework for the future of Wasaga Beach Fire Department in a manner that really has never been done before. So congratulations on that. Some of these slides I'm going to go through fairly quickly in the interest of time and getting through this presentation in a timely manner. Some other ones I'm going to dwell on a bit longer and provide some more detailed information. So the deliverables for the project were to conduct an open and meaningful process, ensure that all-encompassing stakeholder consultation took place. The consideration was given to corporate direction, strategic objectives, and input from council and senior management, and really that the outcome of the plan supports the pillars of the strategic priorities for the town of Wasaga Beach. So really, this is the process that we followed. I just alluded to it. The research,
Greg, but we're not
yes?
seeing the slides advance on our screen. We just see the title page. We're not seeing this full screen version of it. I think you're on slide 3 now.
And you haven't seen any of them advanced, Chief?
No.
Huh. So it worked in closed. Okay, let me stop sharing. I apologize because we did test this yesterday.
You might have just picked the wrong screen to share.
That is possible. Try this again. Are you able to see the main screen?
No, we don't. There's an enable editing button at the top. Do you want to try and hit that first and then try and bring it to full screen?
And then you just have to start your slideshow.
Okay, let's try this again. That is probably going to be our problem. Okay.
Greg, what I would recommend
It-
is,
Are you able to, oh, sorry.
no, I was going to say, just unshare for a minute. There you go.
Okay, yeah, I just hit enable. Okay, so let's try this again. Are you able to see the advance now?
We are, Greg, and I think you would have been on page 3, so you can just go to page 3 and carry on from there.
Okay, sounds good, Your Worship.
Thank you.
Okay, I apologize for that. So, again, as I alluded to earlier, there's a significant amount of information that was gathered during this process. And again, thanks to everybody that participated in that effort. So from there, after we gather all the information, review it, research it, then it's really about the data analysis process. So the data was really analyzed against industry standards such as NFPA, against anticipated municipal growth as an example, and comparator municipalities as well. So through this entire process, what we end up coming up with is the draft recommendations and the body of the discussion within the document itself. So that's essentially the process that is used to develop the master fire plan. And the key focuses of the plan, again, are primarily based and revolve around the Office of the Fire Marshal's 3 lines of defense. So public fire safety education being the first line of defense, fire code enforcement through an active inspection process being the second line of defense, emergency response capabilities being the third line of defense, and an important function that EMG also identifies as a fourth component is the emergency management aspect of your town and how that all rolls into the fire master plan. So these are just some of the, and I won't read all of them out, but these are some of the performance measures and standards that we reference, look at, and use during the development of the master fire plan. So the objectives of the plan, again, were to examine the possible alignment of services and resources, proactively respond to current and anticipated community needs, to protect firefighters by ensuring appropriate and safe equipment and adequate staffing levels, exploring opportunities to adjust and revise the fire department structure, to share services to improve effectiveness, and to implement cost efficiencies and cost avoidance when and where available. So the recommendations are essentially based on, as you see on the left side, those particular criteria. So we took a good look at the local needs and circumstances of the town of Wasaga Beach, governance, again, which includes things like the Fire Protection Prevention Act, Occupational Health and Safety Act, the Fire Code, firefighter certification regulation as an example. And what we came up with, contained within the report, are 60 recommendations. They're either operational, strategic. Many of the operational recommendations can be addressed simply by staff time. And the converse to that really is the strategic recommendations that would include things like staffing level increases, consideration for a third fire station in the future. And along those lines, as council, as your worship and council understand, council clearly establishes the level of service based on the municipal needs and circumstances. And there will be ample time to fully consider the strategic recommendations through the normal course of council business, through things like reports to council from the chief as an example, or through the budget deliberation process. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this particular slide. So the town of Wasaga Beach is experiencing significant growth and development, and really it's a good thing, and it's an opportune time, as I mentioned, to be able to bring this plan forward. One of the fastest growing communities in Simcoe County. If we look at, if I can bring council's attention to page 120 of the report as an example, I'm not sure if you have the document in front of you or not, but you can earmark the page if you like. What we've done is really displayed the areas of growth, upwards of 3,800 new units on the map on Figure 9 on page 120 in relation to your existing fire station locations. So there is significant development scheduled to occur that will fall outside of the current 4-minute response zones for your existing fire stations. So I think that's important to note. Page 123 of the report provides call volume projections out to 2051 based on current call volumes and on the anticipated growth within Wasaga Beach. And Wasaga Beach right now, the Wasaga Beach Fire Department is a busy department. For the population that you have, calls for 2023 were in the area of just over 2,000 incidents. When we compare that information to similar municipalities, I'll use Collingwood as an example, they're in the range of 1,100 calls in 2023. And they're doing it with more career staff. Right now, when we look at a comparator like Innisfil as an example, relatively the same call volume, a little bit higher than Wasaga Beach, but again, with a population of 43,000 people and twice as many career staff. So these are all things that we looked at during the development. I should advance a couple of these slides here. I apologize. Let's pull them all up. So with growth, Your Worship, it should be recognized that the call volumes and the demands for service, not only on the suppression side of your department, but with respect to public fire safety education, fire code inspections, fire code enforcement, training, those, as growth occurs, there will also be impacts on the fire service in all of these aspects. And really, when we look at the first two lines of defense, I just mentioned it, public fire safety education, fire code enforcement, those efforts are really about reducing the occurrence and the risk of fire and the resulting outcomes with respect to injuries, property loss, fatalities, as an example. Prior to going to the next slide, I think it's really important for Your Worship and Council to recognize that fireground operations are really very dynamic, tightly coupled environments that require significant critical tasks to be filled and performed on the fireground to have a successful outcome. Right now, your service, based on our assessment, is challenged in that regard with respect to putting an effective response force on the scene of a fire in a timely manner to really address all the critical fireground tasks that need to be taken care of. And maybe just to mention some of them, things like a rapid intervention team, 2-in, 2-out rules, whereby you have a fire suppression crew enter a structure to suppress a fire. You need a backup team, a backup line. Things like incident safety officers, entry control and accountability function. You need a command function, an established water supply. So there's a lot of moving parts on a fireground that need to be addressed, and in a timely manner. Time is really of the essence. And as we look at fireground operations, moving from a single-family residential structure to multi-unit residential or big box stores, which Wasaga Beach has a fair number of or will be developing, the complexities on the fireground only increase as the size of the occupancy increases as well. Oh, I apologize, I missed that one. So currently, and just to reiterate, we use the National Fire Protection Association NFPA 1710 standard as the benchmark for assessing the current fire suppression response capabilities of your department. And our conclusion really is currently that the service does not meet the NFPA 1710 standard. Now, again, your worship and council, members of council need to know that NFPA standards are not mandated. They are industry best practice. They are, and they're recommended standards to try and achieve or set benchmarks for, but they are not mandatory. So this map just provides, and it's the one I alluded to. So this is really your current fire station locations with 4-minute travel time, and the aligned areas are the projected areas of growth within Wasaga Beach. So you can see a significant development in the Sunnydale Road area, which is where EMG is recommending the council consider in and around the year 2031 the design build of a third fire station. So let's move into some of the recommendations. I'll just click them all on here so they're on here. So the first one is to add the position of a full-time public fire and life safety educator. Again, this is the first line of defense. Our research indicates that improvements can definitely be, notwithstanding the department's doing a great job, improvements can be made in the area of public fire life safety education. Adding the position of a full-time training officer, so really moving the position from part-time to full-time. The training requirements in today's fire service are significant. We have the Ontario Firefighter Certification Regulation. When we look at things like technical rescue as an example, there's a significant amount of training that takes place within the fire service, so we're recommending that a full-time training officer be established. Implementing phase 1 and phase 2 staffing options as presented in the report. I won't get into great detail on those, but they're really around enhancing fire suppression staffing levels. And the fourth one on this slide is to hire 2 probationary firefighters in 2025, aligning with phase 1. Now, I understand the 2025 budget deliberations have already concluded, with staffing expansions not being included for the Wasaga Beach Fire Department. So EMG is strongly recommending that these expansions be considered in the 2026 budget process. So as I alluded to already, contained within the report is a recommendation for the town to begin the process for the addition of a third fire station by 2031. And I think hand in hand with that is assessing the allocation of development charges, the current development charges process for sufficiency against the anticipated cost of Station 3, and that the recommendations in section 7.2.3 be implemented, and those really speak to Schedule E, the consolidated fee schedule for the fire service. So I think we believe there's some opportunities for some revenue generating opportunities as well within the fee schedule that could offset the cost of development and or staffing. Another recommendation, and again, these are just some high-level recommendations out of the 60 recommendations within the report. And this recommendation is the fire chief regularly consult with the Simcoe County paramedic chief to monitor the number of staff medical calls after the introduction of the MPDS system. So This is an important recommendation, and I think the recommendation itself provides for some opportunity and reflection. When we look at a number of the other recommendations contained within the report. So this master fire plan was developed prior to the implementation of MPDS. The Ministry of Health is across the province is moving to the MPDS dispatching system and moving away from the dispatch priority card index system. And we believe that this is going to probably result in a reduction in the number of tiered medical calls that the Wasaga Beach Fire Department responds to, perhaps in the area of 25% reduction. And currently, as is detailed on, oh boy, I can't remember which page it is. Just bear with me for 1 second, Your Worship. So on page 125 of the report, table 10, based on 2018 to 2022 call data, 67% of the calls that the Wasaga Beach Fire Department respond to are medical related calls, which is significantly high when we look at comparator data. Now, that does a couple of things. With the MPDS system, I think there's an opportunity there to see a reduction in those call volumes, which would also in turn lead to probably a reduction in the wear and tear on your apparatus, as an example. It would reduce the number of stacked calls that your department currently deals with. I believe there was in the area of 175 stacked calls between 2021 and 2023 for the service, which means you have ambulance, paramedic services, and fire service committed, and another call comes in where there's not an available apparatus to send to that call. So there should be a positive impact in that regard as well. And the other issue I think should be important for Your Worship and Council to recognize is when we look at the percentage of medical calls that the department goes to, and compare, when then we look at the property fires and explosions as a percentage, it's skewed to the low side. I think that Your Worship and Council have to recognize that your property fire and explosion occurrences within Wasaga Beach are generally consistent with comparative municipalities. It's because your tiered medical calls are so much higher, it really skews that data down. So opportunities, I believe, with MPDS, and it's something that should be closely monitored over time. Another one of the recommendations speaks to training firefighters to the National Fire Protection Association 1006 standard, which is the standard for technical rescue professional qualifications. Your service does a really good job of preparing for technical rescue incidents. What we're recommending is at a minimum that all firefighters be at least trained to the awareness level for those technical rescue incidents that they're not responding to at a higher level. I'm just going to move ahead with my slide. Bear with me. So this recommendation really speaks to the necessity for robust decontamination procedures that align with the Ministry of Labor Cancer Prevention Checklist and industry best practice. We have legislation in the province of Ontario for presumptive firefighter cancers. The fire service in Ontario is and has been doing a tremendously greater job with efforts to reduce firefighter exposure to carcinogens and in turn hopefully reduce firefighter cancers in the province of Ontario. These types of workplace injuries can be hugely expensive for municipalities. So really every effort that can be made to reduce firefighter exposure to carcinogens is important. Firefighters have a 9% higher risk of having a cancer diagnosis, and this is based on Health Canada research, and a 14% higher risk than in the general population of dying from cancer. So this recommendation speaks to the replacement of fire apparatus, and the recommendation, when developed, was really measured against current projected call volumes, wear and tear on your apparatus due to driving conditions, things like road salt, sand in the area, associated maintenance costs, and the post-pandemic build and delivery time for fire apparatus. So I think there's room for reflection regarding this recommendation. You know, when we consider things like MPDS as an example, notwithstanding, we support the recommendation and stand behind it. There may be room for reflection as the chief assesses call volumes and wear and tear on vehicles and things like that with the introduction of MPDS. Bear with me, Your Worship, while I just move my little box so I can read the slide. So in closing, and again, I think this was, it has been mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, you have a dedicated team of professionals within your service, both career and volunteer. And it was evident through the data collection process and the engagement process that they are dedicated to the service, they're dedicated to your town, and they're ready to and effectively meet the evolving needs of the community. So to close out, really the intent of this presentation is to offer a high-level overview of the process and methodology behind the development of this report. It is recommended that the fire chief and staff prioritize the recommendations based on their implementation timelines, and then present strategic recommendations to council for review and consideration. So with that, I would like to thank Your Worship and Council for the opportunity to present this plan on behalf of the Emergency Management Group. I will stop sharing my screen, and I'm prepared to take any questions that Council may have.
Thank you very much, Greg, and thank you, Chief. Questions or comments from members of Council? Councillor Timms?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. One of the things that you said that really struck me and made me wonder was the statement that our current fire suppression response model does not satisfy industry standards. While they're not regulated, they're still standards. Could you elaborate on that, please, Greg?
Sure. Through Your Worship, again, I guess to reiterate, when you're measuring a fire service's, any fire service's response capability, and I guess it would be similar with any other measurement for any other industry, you really need to measure against a benchmark. So the benchmark we used was the NFPA 1710 standard, which sets response time objectives for a career fire service. So when we look at the mapping model, and I showed the slide of it with the 4-minute response coverage, measured against the standard, the present deployment model does not meet the standard. Now, that's not to say that the council has to, or any municipality for that matter, has to adhere to an NFPA standard. They're not mandated. What we really suggest, council sets a level of service, and council, can determine the level of risk that they're willing to accept within the response criteria of their fire service. So what we're suggesting is, or stating is, measured against the NFPA 1710 standard, the Wasaga Beach Fire Department does not meet the standard. Now, council can implement measures if they so choose to move the department closer to that standard by increasing staffing, by building additional fire stations, or not. Council can accept the established level of service right now, and recognizing the risk associated with that, and continue to do what they're doing presently. Through your worship, does that answer the councillor's question?
Councillor?
Thank you, Your Worship, and through you. So it has mostly to do with the time to get the team to the event?
Through your worship, so there are time factors within the standard. There's time factors associated with call handling at dispatch through the dispatching process. There's time factors associated with assembly time, which is the time it takes firefighters to put their turnout gear on and get on the apparatus and start responding after notification of an incident. And there are time factors associated with response, which is once the truck starts rolling to the point where the apparatus arrives on the scene. So those are some of the factors contained within the standard. The other important piece to this is on-scene staffing levels. Essentially, if you have 2 firefighters arrive on the scene of a structural fire, whether they're volunteer, career, there's very little they can actually do on that scene to begin mitigation efforts on the fire, as an example. So if we look at requirements for 2 in, 2 out, so for a fire crew, and to the chief's credit, there's policy on this, for a fire crew to make an effective interior attack on a fire, a first arriving crew, you need 4 people on the scene. That is the standard that should be used. To conduct effective fireground operations on a single-family residential structure, the standard suggests that you need 16 firefighters on the scene to effectively conduct those operations, because what is required is an incident command officer. You need 2 firefighters to enter the structure to begin suppression and search and rescue efforts. You need a backup line with 2 firefighters. You need a rapid intervention team. You should have an incident safety officer in place. The command officer needs to consider things like entry control and accountability. So there's a number, and these are really called critical fireground tasks, and it speaks to having an effective response force on the scene of a fire in a timely manner, to conduct all these operations. So as important as the response time is the first due company and the staffing levels on that first due apparatus. And 2 is very challenging. If you move into 3 and 4 firefighters for a first due company, you can be far more effective in your mitigation efforts. So there's a number of criteria contained within the report. I know I'm getting long-winded here, but really that again is the standard we used to benchmark the current operations of the Wasaga Beach Fire Department.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship, and thank you, Greg. I never realized how important response time was until 2 people have expressed to me. One would have not been here if it hadn't been for your crew getting there before the ambulance. And the other is an elderly senior couple who would like to downsize, but they don't want to move too far away from the fire department because there was a hard episode with the husband, and again, our team revived him. So this is a concern to the public, I believe.
Thank you, Councillor Timms. Councillor DeLeo.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I have both a question and a comment. Thank you, Greg, first off, for your report. Very informative. You indicated that you would like to see a 3rd fire station put here in Wasaga Beach. I'm all for that. But this question is for Andrew, our CAO. Andrew, do you think we have any surplus land that we can build this on rather than buying land and saving some taxpayer money?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. That's not really my call. We would have to work with the chief, and I mean, it's all based on response time. So yes, we do have surplus land, but it may not meet the needs of emergency response. So I'd almost defer that to the chief to comment on.
Chief.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Councillor DeLeo. Just for Council's awareness, there is a property that's located in the southern portion of the Sunnydale development on Union Boulevard. That property has been held for a potential future fire or paramedic station. The town has not purchased that property yet, but we do have their first right of refusal to purchase it at fair market value if the time comes. Through the analysis of the consultant's work, I think we had agreed that location is not an ideal location because too much of its coverage area falls outside of the municipal boundary into Clearview Township, and an ideal location would be either farther up Sunnydale Road or towards Mosley Street. So through this process over the next 10 years, what we would like to do is identify a property that better serves our community, and then I would come forward to council at the appropriate time with a recommendation that we purchase a property for a third station, or we look at alternative options to provide coverage to that area of the community.
Thank you, Chief. Councillor DeLeo.
Thank you. Now I have a comment. Greg, you indicated that you would like to see all the pumpers being replaced after 12 years of life, rather than the 15. Well, what after the 12 years, if they're still running properly, why would we need to replace them? Why can't they still be used for the next 3 years? Like that, you wouldn't make that mandatory in your report, would you?
Through your worship, again, it's a recommendation contained in the report. And as I alluded to in my presentation, I think there's definitely some time for reflection on that particular recommendation as a result of MPDS, the introduction of MPDS, and what should be anticipated as a reduction in call volumes, primarily on the tiered medical side. Typically or normally when a frontline apparatus is replaced, be it at 15 years or 18 or 20 or 12, many fire services move the apparatus into a reserve capacity and then dispose of a reserve apparatus, as an example. So replacing an apparatus doesn't mean that it's at end of life necessarily. There's opportunity to move that apparatus into a reserve capacity as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. We now look to Councillor Ego.
Thank you, and through your worship. Yes, thank you, Greg, very much for this, and thank you for often referring to the medical priority dispatching system. I can see that's going to play a big role on our numbers here, and as you say, on the pumper, they're used for the call, maybe not so much the putting out of a fire. And, you know, in our numbers, and so the public knows, we have like double the calls for medical and that a town double our size would have. So we're like doubling up on everything. And I don't know when this system will be done in the tiered medical, when it will be coming into operation, but I think we're going to be looking at our figures probably really well after that's been in operation for a while, and because it certainly would be skewing our numbers now. That's how I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. And just for the record, it is in play now. It started about a month and a half ago, and exactly as you recommended, the chief is going to be watching that, as is this county of Simcoe, so as that we can look at what that means to our response times and the amount of calls that we do here in Wasaga Beach. All right. Councillor Belanger.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. Other councillors have sort of touched on what I was thinking, but one was recently we also had a fleet survey which included fire, and the recommendation from experts based on other communities recommended that we extend the life of our fire vehicles. And obviously, they were not fire experts. But again, I was a little surprised that we now have an expert suggesting the exact opposite. So I think there has to be some reflection there. No question that we want our first responders to have very, very ready vehicles that they can rely on, but they are a huge expense. So we have to look through maintenance programs and everything else as to effectively get utilization of those vehicles as long as possible without causing any risk to our first responders. And then the second question is to the chief, and this is, again, with the medical priority response system. I talked in a closed session for a minute. If it's truly an emergency medical call, then certainly the dispatching of fire and paramedics and one getting there 1 minute earlier can save a life. But do we record or have any indication of how many of the medical calls are truly not emergencies, but they're individuals that felt that they should have attention from a first responder, but it could have been, should have only been paramedics?
Thank you, Councillor. Chief Williams?
Thank you, Mayor Smith, and through you to Councillor Belanger. Yes, I think we do have a very good assumption of what that is. We have the ability through paramedic service to look at all of the medical responses within the town of Wasaga Beach, determine what was the original call dispatched as, and then determine the final triage acuity scale that is assigned by paramedics to that patient upon arrival at the hospital. So from that assessment, we can determine how bad was the medical emergency perceived to be versus how bad it was in the end. The challenge is that a dispatcher is only able to dispatch emergency services based on the information that they're provided during a 911 call. So ultimately, if someone picks up the phone and calls 911 and says, my loved one isn't breathing, regardless of whether they're breathing or not, the response needs to happen. What I can share with council, and many of you are already aware, is through our establishing and regulating bylaw, that is the bylaw that council is able to utilize to set our level of response to medical calls in the town of Wasaga Beach. In Simcoe County, we have 3 options, which is through a tiered medical agreement with paramedic services. Option 1 is to not respond to medical calls proactively and only respond if paramedics are on scene and ask for help. There isn't any fire departments that I'm aware of that are taking advantage of that level of service. We then have level A and level B. Level A is a higher level of response, meaning you go to more medical calls. Level B is a reduced level of response. The way Simcoe County looks is that all volunteer departments in Simcoe County go to level B. The only exception to that is Collingwood Fire Department, who also goes to level B. All full-time fire departments in Simcoe County go to level A response calls. So Wasaga Beach very much is following the normative approach to fire service. I think what sets us apart really truly is our demographics. We have more seniors in our town that have sudden medical emergencies. What these calls look like, if it's helpful, is if you're at a level B level response, so the lower level, you would go to unresponsive patients, including cardiac arrest, choking calls, profuse bleedings, and cardiac chest pain calls when paramedics are delayed by 15 minutes or more. If you're a level A response, you will go to all those calls, but in addition to that, you will respond to all cardiac chest pain calls, shortness of breath calls, and seizures when it's perceived by the dispatcher to be a life-threatening circumstance. And the reason I say that is with this new dispatch priority system, if someone calls and they say, well, I'm short of breath, however, I have COPD and I've been short of breath for the last 10 years of my life, the fire department's not responding to that. It's intended to be acute shortness of breath. So something that is happening right away that could result in a life-threatening emergency. So ultimately, we will continue to monitor, certainly for the next 6 months and beyond, for the impact of MPDS, but we do have full ability to change our response level with the county paramedics and go to a lessened amount of calls if council wishes.
Thank you, Chief. Anything further, Councillor Belanger?
Yeah, just in follow-up and for the public, I think the number that was indicated that in recent years, or maybe it was last year, there were 175 what you call stacking calls, where we were out on a call and another call came in, and our response time for that second call might have been impacted. And that's why it's so important that we truly are responding to medical emergencies, and the more we can determine whether or not we need to be there or not. But certainly, if there's any imminent danger of losing a life, we definitely want to dispatch both paramedics and fire. But where we can determine that it's not required, it makes the next call, the individual that requires help, that much more safe. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor Snell?
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. Just a couple of comments and then a question. I was shocked and saddened by the cancer slide. Testicular cancer, an increased potential of 102%, cervical cancer 300%. Why anybody chooses to be a firefighter outside, like with that stat alone, is shocking. And I also wanted to say thank you, because in the piece about the first line of defense, one thing I'm so incredibly proud of our firefighters, both our volunteer and staff, is how many of them come out to events. We're doing a series, you guys are doing a series of toys drives right now, and I stopped in at one last Saturday, and there was probably, I think, 10 or 12 officers out that day and doing the education and whatnot. So thank you for that. And the point about the DCs, that was one of my questions as well, and maybe I turn this to our treasurer. Do we assign a percentage of DCs to a firefighting reserve defense fund or something? Thank you.
Through your worship, yes, we do. We have roughly, on a single-family household, our development charge is about $30,000 per single-family household. About $1,300 of that is assigned to the DCs for the fire and emergency services.
All right, thank you, Deputy Mayor Snell. Any other questions or comments from council? All right, interesting presentation and some very important points, but also some important points I think that we need to take into consideration. The one thing that's, I won't say concerning, but is confusing to me, in that we keep hearing the word "the standard." It's not legislated. So I would say it's more a best practice than a standard. A standard is something that you have to adhere to, where a best practice is something you don't. So I think it confuses not only council, but it can confuse the public. What I don't want is that the general public in Wasaga Beach now believe that, Wasaga Beach Fire Department doesn't meet the standard. Wasaga Beach Fire Department, I think, well meets the standard, and it does that so because of our chief, our deputy chief, and our firefighters, who I believe are second to none. But we do meet the standards, maybe not all the best practices. So I just don't want the public to think that we're way below standard, because that isn't the case. And if you've ever called our fire department and needed them for any services, I think you would clearly see that we meet the standard. With respect to retention around our volunteers, I think it's important that we start to have a discussion, because our volunteers, as you indicated earlier, Chief, the one thing that helps us with retention of them is they know that they're kind of that first line when we're looking for full-time firefighters. And so that tells me that we not only need to, or want to retain, but we want to attract high-quality people to our volunteer program. And so I know that we currently have about $80,000 in the budget that is split depending on their points and their hours. My suggestion is that we really look at that, and we look at compensation around our volunteers, because, and I understand they're all happy, but I think we want to be the choice for volunteers if that's the pool that we're really going to be looking at and drawing from. So, listen, our volunteers, as we know, do a great job. They're always there to have your back. So I think it's important that we enhance that program for certain. Call volumes comparable to a town of 45K, I would say, again, because of medical calls for certain. The new medical priority dispatch system, I think, is going to help that in a great way. And the one good news story I heard about the new MPDS program is that in the past, when firefighters headed out to a medical call, they kind of got the very basics. Where now with this new system, the captain in the truck is able to see in real time the information that the dispatcher is capturing, much the same as the paramedics do. So when our firefighters get there, they have a really good understanding compared to what they did before as to what they're faced with. And I think that's vitally important. I'll ask you to speak to that, Chief, if you would, briefly, as to how important that is, not only to, the health of the patient, but to, the firefighters themselves.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I wholeheartedly agree. I think there's two sides to it. It is patient care. So as Council's aware, our firefighters are trained under the County of Simcoe Paramedic Services Quality Care Program, which means that they operate under a medical physician and they have a set of protocols and medication and procedures that they're able to deliver. To get information in a timely fashion before they arrive at the residence means that they can prepare for what they're about to walk into and provide the best quality care possible. The second side of it is safety of the firefighters. Is our work environment is everywhere, and we have no idea sometimes what we are getting ourselves into, and all of the information is vital to ensure that firefighters aren't walking into something that they're not prepared for, and that they're requesting the appropriate amount of help and support from allied agencies before they get there when they need it.
Thank you very much, Chief. And then the last point I'll make, and I agree wholeheartedly with the Deputy Mayor, the cancer levels are staggering, in my opinion. When I read this report, I went through that probably 2 or 3 times because I just couldn't believe it. So my question is, should firefighters not be using a Scott pack as a mandatory item or line of defense and health safety at any call that involves fire of any kind at any time?
Absolutely, Your Worship, and I'll answer, and then Greg, if you want to add anything more, but we have clear policy on that they will protect themselves with our breathing apparatus and all the other applicable personal protective gear whenever they are exposed to anything dangerous. In the last number of years, we have made strides in Wasaga Beach, so we have looked at the structural firefighting bunker gear that the firefighters wear, and we've moved to a newer line of bunker gear that is now PFAS free, which is a cancer causing agent, meaning that when they wear the bunker gear, they're less likely to be exposed to chemicals within the bunker gear itself that causes cancer. Last week, we actually just purchased and distributed all new balaclavas for the firefighters that protect their necks and their head from heat, and that is a specialty designed hood that keeps out carcinogen agents. We have a decontamination tool that we use on scene, which is basically soap and water, but it's a special pressurized nozzle that's intended to knock large amounts of fire debris off of firefighters when they come out of a burning building. And then as they take off all their equipment before they leave the scene, as soon as they get back to the station, they are required to shower and then go into what's called a decontamination unit, which helps sweat out any heavy metals that they might have in their blood. So we're not in terrible shape in Wasaga Beach. We have made strides. To Greg's credit, what they've done is they've pointed out for us that I think we need to document our process a little bit better. And there is a specific checklist that's provided by the Ministry of Labour specific to the fire service. And what we need to do is reflect on that checklist and make sure we really are hitting every point of it to protect our firefighters. Greg, I don't know if you have more to add to that or not.
Thank you, Chief. Greg?
Your Worship, no, the chief has covered off on it very well. The fire service has made significant strides in the last number of years, in recognition of the firefighter cancers and the impacts, occupational impacts of the job. Your chief is, through the discussions we've had, is very cognizant of the challenges associated with firefighter cancers and what's required on the decontamination side and protecting firefighters from exposure. So the policies and procedures that they have in place, they are, they're right out in front with the rest of the fire service as far as trying to manage firefighter exposure. So your worship and council can rest assured that your chief has this front and center and in mind for his firefighters.
Thank you, Greg, and thank you, Chief. If there's no further questions or comments from council, all right, we do have a motion that the presentation by Greg Hankio, Emergency Management Group, pertaining to the Town of Wasaga Beach Fire Master Plan be received as information. Could I move in a second for this, please? Moved by Councillor DeLeo, second by Councillor Belanger. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you very much, Greg. Thank you, Chief. We do have another motion that the report titled 2024 Fire Master Plan to the council meeting of December 12, 2024 be received, and that council direct the fire chief to use the 2024 Fire Master Plan as a reference document to guide the delivery of fire protection services over the next 10 years, and that the financial investments recommended within the 2024 Fire Master Plan inform the 10-year capital forecast and further updates to the development charges background study to ensure growth-related costs can be recovered to the fullest extent possible. Questions or comments on this? Seeing none, a mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Tim, second by Deputy Mayor Snell. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. Moving on to item number 8, delegations. We have one delegation today, and that is Mr. Brian Curry of the Wasaga Beach Cruisers, and the overview of the Wasaga Beach Cruisers. So, Brian, welcome, and welcome to your team. You don't go anywhere alone, that's for sure. Never. Come on up, have a seat there. Good to see you. And just push that silver button in the center, and the floor is yours, sir.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor and Deputy Mayor, Councillors. I want to thank you all for allowing us a few moments to speak. Today, I'm here, as you know, my name is Brian Curry. I'm here as a representative from the Wasaga Beach Cruisers Car Club. And we come today with to wish and thank you all very, very much, the town, for your support of our club over the years. I go back, this happens to be our 20th anniversary this year. I went back and looked over the past, and this town has been absolutely amazing over the years, the support that they have given us, and it allows us to do the things that we do within the town and outside the town. And we're going to make a small presentation here a little bit, but first off, I'm going to talk about something I'm really proud of, and that's our club. And as you can see, we have a number of members with us today because we recognize the importance of this town to us. And we have, I checked with our membership guy this morning, and he tells us we're somewhere around about 210, 220 families within our organization, within our club. And we're in a membership regime right now, growing our membership. So when I say membership, that's a family, that husband and wife. We're very much a family-oriented group. When we hold a meeting, it's 40-50% women as well as the men, so it's not a bunch of gearheads getting together and talking about changing their rear end. It's getting together and enjoying everybody's company and having a fun time. We do 17 weeks of our Monday night cruises, which I'm sure you're all aware of, over here at the Stonebridge Gazebo. And that particular thing has become very, very popular within the car culture locally. This past summer, we had a gentleman drove up with a brand new build. He came from London, Ontario, with a replica drag car of the Batmobile. And he brought it by trailer, he brought it in, what a crowd pleaser. It just brought people from all over. The other thing we had was two young men who had left the Maritimes. They were on their way in a Mercedes repurposed ambulance, very old, and they were on their way to South America, and they stopped at our show and actually served burgers and had a great time, and then they left and continued going south. On June 21st, 22nd, 20, 21, 22 of June of this coming year, we'll be holding our 21st annual fun run, which will be out at the sports park, and we're making some changes in that moving forward this year. The last number of years, weather has not cooperated with us, but with that venue out there, we aim for 600 to 700 to 800 cars out there. We try to draw them from as far away as Sudbury, North Bay, London, Ottawa. We even have some coming from Quebec. We've had the occasion where people have come from the U.S., and they come because of where we are and who we are. Our club has suddenly started to be recognized by other clubs around some of the things we do. We actually get calls from other clubs to say, would you come out and talk to us? We want to hear what you guys are doing. We do it's becoming quite popular actually, our gray hair tour. Our gray hair tour, thanks to everybody's appearance, is a multi-day tour. 2025 will see us doing our 5th. This past year we started first night in Huntsville, second night in North Bay, third night in Sudbury. In North Bay, we ended up on the television announcing there were 68 cars and 128 members went on this. So when you pull into a community with that much classic automobiles, you do draw attention. So we're on the radio there, and we ended up in Sudbury, and actually ended up on television in Sudbury as representatives of Wasaga Beach Cruisers and Wasaga Beach. We, during our presentation here in a moment, we have been, if anybody follows us on our Facebook page, we have 4,700 followers. I know, Ellen, thank you. We have 4,700 followers on our Facebook page, and we have, a year and a half ago, we had a gentleman step forward and wanted to be a promotion, and he's taken over the promotion of the club and done just a spectacular job. And with that, one of the things was a small 2-foot by about 18-inch little flag that said Wasaga Beach and Wasaga Beach Cruisers on it, and they have gone all over the world, literally. We've had them from Australia, Japan, China, Alaska, all across Canada, all through the United States. Right now, I just had a picture the other day from a couple of members that are in Jamaica, and they take the flag, they have a picture taken, and they send it back, and we put it on our Facebook page and promote the town that way. Let me see. I made a list because I knew I was going to forget something. Actually, you know what? I think I got it all. Anyways, so if I could ask George Johnson and Norm Copperthorne to come forward, and Council, if you would come down front, we'd like to make a presentation to you right now, if that would be fine. Are we okay, Mayor?
Absolutely. Just a couple of comments before we do that. I just want to, on behalf of Council, congratulate you, Brian, and the Wasaga Cruisers for 20 years. And I think it's important to note to the general public in this community that this is an organization that never ceases to amaze me. And if you've attended any of their events, the part that amazes me the most every time I'm at an event or talking to a member of your club is how absolute, positive, and forward-thinking all of your members are. You know, I never see a long face. It's always a smiling face and a hand or a hug. You know, it's always positive things that you talk about. It's never the bad and the negative. And I'll tell you, that's a trait you don't see with individuals or especially large clubs anymore. And the fact that you're one of the largest in the country and probably if not North America, and to have that positive attitude. And you talk about the gray hairs. Well, this is a group of gray hairs, I'll tell you, that is as active as it can get. And I have seen many photos of your club, your members out all over the world with this flag. And that not only promotes your club, but it promotes Wasaga Beach. And we thank you for that, because the more promotion our community has, the more people want to visit our wonderful community and move here. And as you know, with the club with gray hairs, you need new members. So great job all around. I can't say enough great about your club and what you do and that positive attitude. It's a breath of fresh air, and we thank you.
Thank you very much, Mayor.
And of course, now that I've said something, everyone's going to want to speak to you now, so I'm going to look to Councillor Belanger.
That's fine.
Thank you, through the chair. You didn't mention all of the charity work you do, and I think it would be remiss. I've seen many check presentations from your group to our various charities, and you do a lot of things for seniors and that are confined or are in assisted living or independent living homes, and to entertain them. And, you know, I always get a kick out of what you do at Christmas, so I think it's very important to say that you give back to your community a great deal, and we appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Joe, and I just will add that that was one of the things I did miss, actually. We did 8 different nursing homes this past summer. 5 of which we went and did what we called a static show, or a show at the nursing homes. And Waterside, the one right here in town, we went to the management there and we said, okay, you can pick 3 to 4 continent residents, and they can come out and they can pick a car, and we'll take them for a drive in the car. And that was just a huge, huge hit. And I can tell you, everyone back here will agree with me when I say it's one of the most fun things we do as a group, is going to a nursing home, to see the seniors come out. They might be with family, they might be with staff, but come out and, you know, you'll see them, oh, I had a car like that. Oh, I met my wife in the back seat of a car like that. And that's as far as I'm going to go with that one. But it is one of the most fun things we do. And as far as charity work, yeah, we do. We support Georgian Triangle Hospice. We support My Friend's House. And thanks to one of our members and his wife, who happened to be with us this afternoon, Russ and Sandy, they put on the Christmas party, and at that Christmas party, we were very, very fortunate through a silent auction to raise $6,100 that we donated to the food bank yesterday.
Great job. And I got to say, Chuck, this is the first time I've ever seen you in my life without a hat. I had to do a double take. But good to see you. There you go. You haven't let me down. Councillor Timms.
Thank you, Your Worship, and I do follow your social media, and I did want to mention all your community work, which, thank you, Councillor Belanger, but I also want to tell you that your ears must have been burning yesterday, because at the Economic Development Tourism Advisory Committee, we were talking about the cruisers, and probably you're one of our greatest assets for driving local economy and bringing tourists here on a regular basis. And the flags all over the world is just another thing. But I also do want to say, breakfast, dinners, road trips, you are making a huge investment in the local economy, and not just here, but in other communities as well. So I'm saving up to buy a car, so maybe one day I can be in the club. But I do want to recognize, Your Worship, that there are founding members here in the audience today, and I know that from social media.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? Councillor DeLeo.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. I am a proud member
She
of
is
Wasaga
indeed. Yes, indeed.
Cruisers for several years now. I can attest that your meets are always fun, no matter where we go, fun. But Brian, you know this. I got a messenger, I think about 6 months ago, from a gentleman from Niagara-on-the-Lake. So he sends me a message, he goes, "Hi, Sasha Rose." He says, "You know, I've been following you for several months now, and I see that there's a car club and you're having so much fun in there." He goes, you know, when time permits, I would love to come up on a Monday and join you guys. But he goes, but it's such a fun town. It seems like you're all getting together and having a lot of fun. So we are being watched, which is good. So I wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, we'll all head down for a picture. Great. Absolutely, Brian, go right ahead. Going to ask you to turn your mic back on there. There we go.
I'd say I'm infamous for forgetting things, but one last thing that our club is doing is we have a small booth at in March in Toronto at the International Center at Motorama, it's called. It's the largest indoor car show in Canada. We have been there now for about 5 years with a booth. I will take some pictures and send it, advertising Wasaga Beach, and that's when we put out our flyers for our fun run and our Monday nights, and yeah, constant promotion for the town. We do our best, do what we can.
Well, we appreciate it very much. I just ask that we forward that address, or maybe one of the staff can just give that, not the address, sorry, those dates to Michaela, and perhaps maybe some members of council could do a trip down and see us there. I think another thing that's really important to mention, and the Deputy Mayor mentioned it as well, is that our 1947 vintage fire truck, the first fire truck in the town of Wasaga Beach, I'm happy and proud to say we're able to get the fire chief and deputy chief and yourself, Brian, and some of your members together, and you folks are looking after restoring that and bringing it back to its natural beauty and making sure there's some brakes on it. And the most important thing that I can think of is moving that tailpipe to the back so that council doesn't get gassed to death at one of these parades.
Well, you'll be happy to know, Mr. Mayor, that the brakes are in the process of being done as we speak. The exhaust is out the back, complete. The mechanics side of it will be done shortly. I actually have members coming forward saying, I want to help out on this project, and we will have it looking really spiffy by spring, for sure.
No doubt in my mind. When the chief mentioned that, I told him, I said, I have the absolute group of people that I'm sure will take this on happily, and called you up and you did it. So thank you again for all you do for our community. We look at our new towels, Wasaga Beach, again, proudly displayed there in big letters, and I can't say enough good. So thank you very much, everybody, for attending today and what you do.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, we do have a motion that the delegation by Brian Curry, Wasaga Beach Cruisers, pertaining to the overview of the Wasaga Beach Cruisers be received for information. Could I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Moved by Councillor DeLeo, seconded by Councillor Eagle. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Moving on to item number 9, government relations. 9.1 is the warming centers. Fire Chief, verbal update. Chief?
Thank you, Your Worship. Since establishing the Municipal Warming and Cooling Center Activation Plan in 2023, staff have continued to explore options to enhance services and better protect vulnerable residents who lack stable housing in our community. The County of Simcoe leads the regional system for homelessness supports and services, working through partnerships and funded service agreements with community-based organizations. While this is a county-led initiative, the municipality recognizes its important role in facilitating conversations and developing solutions here at the local level. In recent weeks, staff have prompted discussions with the County of Simcoe and several local churches to develop a new overnight warming center program. This program aims to expand access by activating at temperatures as mild as -10, and I'm pleased to report that these conversations are resulting in a strong desire to formalize a partnership this winter. We anticipate an announcement will be able to be made shortly with additional details, including an expected opening date of January 2025. So I do plan on returning to Council on January the 16th with a staff report that will outline the program scope, including the role of the municipality in this enhanced program. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Chief. And I understand, without getting into names at this point, but that is going to a board tonight for approval. And if approved, I'm assuming you'll be able to share that with Council?
Yes, absolutely, and just want to rest assured that should it be approved at the church's board tonight, we will move as quickly as we can, working with the County of Simcoe to make this operational. If there's a need prior to the January 16th council meeting to open, it will occur, and I will follow up with council after the fact to let them know what the overall plan looks like.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Chief. Questions or comments? Councillor DeLeo?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Fire Chief Williams, thank you. When I brought this forward, about a year ago, if not, lowering the temperature from -30 to -20, well, you went above and beyond and did it to -10. That is music to my ears. I thank you. I'm sure a lot of people out there thank you for all you do. So I'm grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor DeLeo. Councillor Eagle?
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. Yes, Chief, I just want to say a personal thank you as well on all our behalfs in this town. I've never seen anyone do such personal outreach to residents that are vulnerable, and you personally are the leader in the town on that, so thank you so much.
Any other questions or comments? Deputy Mayor Snell?
Thank you, Your Worship, through you. I'm really happy to hear this as well. And one question I had was -10, does that include wind chill, or is that just a straight -10, if you could answer? And then I had a comment.
Sure, through Your Worship, through Deputy Snell. I can't answer that right now, only because That's part of the conversations that are occurring between the church who's interested, as well as the County of Simcoe. What I can tell you is the activation plan is recommended by the County of Simcoe, and at this point they wish to keep it consistent with the rest of the warming centers that happen throughout Simcoe County. So the decision as to exactly when things would open or not wouldn't be our decision. It would not be the municipalities. It would be a decision made between the County of Simcoe's service provider and the church itself. I do know that other than they've generally said their desire is -10, they have also indicated that they do have the ability to make a decision just based on an adverse weather event. So for example, today we're dealing, I think it's a snow squall warning, and I know other parts of the province are dealing with a blizzard warning. Regardless of it being -10 or not, there is the autonomy for the program to just make a decision that we need to open because of an event that's happening. So I want to stay out of the weeds because I think there's experts that should have more of a say than I do, but rest assured they'll be well taken care of.
Thank you, through you, Your Worship. Just a comment, because a lot of folks sometimes, as all communities are seeing an increase in homelessness and vulnerable residents, and some people don't know how to access services. So just for public knowledge, I think it's important to share that the county operates a really cool portal system that they launched in October of 2023, and it's called Open, is it open? I just want to get it exactly right. If it's open.simcoe, yes, open.simcoe.ca. And it's a real-time data dashboard where you can see capacity and availability space in shelters. So if anybody is looking for shelter space, or if you're trying to help somebody get out of the cold and into a more secure, stable housing environment that way, it also just recently added childcare spaces to it as well. So if parents are looking for access to that. And also sitting on the Affordable Housing Committee within county in my role there, General Manager Fayez Baguette, one thing when I asked him, what should communities be directing, or what should councils and staff be directing community residents to do when they come across or they're trying to support somebody who's vulnerable like that? 211. That's where they want us all to go, because 211 is also collecting all of that data, and then that's going to help strengthen a business case for advocacy for funding or whatnot from the province to provide additional support. So just wanted to put those two things out there, open.simcoe.ca and 211. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Snell. Other questions or comments? Councillor DeLeo.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just a follow-up, Fire Chief Willems. Animals will be allowed to go into the warming centers if somebody has a pet?
Thank you, through your worship. Again, I don't know. I can't answer that one today, but I'd be happy to come back in January with that answer. Again, the criteria that is used to manage the facility isn't up to me. It would be through the agreement with the county service provider and the church.
All right, anything to add, Chief?
I was just going to say thank you to the Deputy Mayor for mentioning 201. You took the words out of my mouth. That's the primary reason why I had my hand up. But as well, I probably should have mentioned in my initial update that this is an enhancement to the existing services that are provided. So I do want to make it perfectly clear for the public that we do have a homeless shelter that provides service to our area 365 days a year, and it is funded through the County of Simcoe to their service provider, which is currently the Busby Center. So there might be questions after hearing my initial update as to, well, why isn't it open all the time? The answer is we do have a shelter that's opened all the time. This is truly an enhancement, recognizing the cold conditions that some of our community members need to survive through in the winter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chief, and thanks for the work you and your team do. This is great news for our more vulnerable folks here in the town of Wasaga Beach, and for our regular residents to know that we're looking after those who need that extra help. All right, the item number 9.2 is the January-February council meetings, and I'll look to our clerk who is with us online. Not feeling so well today, but she's a trooper and she's here online at least. Madam Clerk?
Good morning, everyone, and thank you. And this is timely, as I announced that the town of Wasaga Beach will trial and pilot virtual meetings for January and February. So all council meetings will be via Zoom and will be played on our town's website and YouTube channel. This is to accommodate a few things. Number one, it's following the County of Simcoe's lead that is also doing a virtual hybrid model for January and February meetings. It'll allow for participation with inclement weather that we may experience again today, and due to illness, it allows everyone to participate as well. So I just want to relay that for everyone's information. We will be putting out communication to this effect as well, ensuring everybody knows how to register to delegate and speak to council during January and February meetings. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And just for the general public, if you're not sure and you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to the town, and we'll be glad to answer those questions and help you with any delegations or concerns you may have. All right, moving on to item number 10 is the staff reports. We have no items pulled today for separate consideration, but we do have our CFO, Jocelyn, who's going to speak to our investment report. Sorry, before you do, Jocelyn, I see the CAO is waving his hand there.
We had the one item on Hanukkah. Sorry, Hanukkah. General.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have that here, but I do recall. So yes, we're going to go back now. So this will be 9.3 under government relations with respect to Hanukkah, and Lisa's here to join us. Lisa, the floor is yours. Thank you, Mr. CAO.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Worship. Thank you, Council, for having me today. We are pleased to report that by recommendation of Rochelle Feldman, who's the president of the Southern Georgian Bay Jewish Community, Wasaga Beach will be marking the celebration of Hanukkah this year with a window display that we're going to put in at 120 Glenwood, which is our new staff building. It will be paired with a display of the Nativity as well, so we'll be representing our Christian as well as our Jewish friends here in the area. The Hanukkah display will feature imagery synonymous with the holiday, including the Star of David, dreidels, and most importantly, a lit menorah. We were also helping the Southern Georgian Bay Jewish community promote their Hanukkah gathering, which will take place on December 29th at Blue Mountain through our social media accounts. As Wasaga Beach continues to grow, we also plan on adding additional interfaith elements into our holiday celebration beginning in 2026.
Excellent.
25.
There we go. All right.
Pardon me.
That's great. Thank you very much, Lisa. And I can't say enough good about Mrs. Feldman and Dr. Feldman. Their presentation they did here was absolutely phenomenal. They did it and did it well and did it right. And this is good news for Wasaga Beach and, of course, our Jewish community. Questions or comments? All right. Seeing none, thank you very much, Lisa, and we look forward to seeing that.
Thank you for
All right, we'll now go back to staff reports, and as I was saying, there had been no items pulled for separate consideration, but our CFO, Jocelyn Lee, is going to speak to our investment report. Jocelyn?
Thank you, Your Worship. The annual investment report comes forward once a year to report on our investments that we had made in the prior year. And I just wanted to point out for 2023, we had a very strong rate of return on our investments, and it resulted in interest earnings of $2.3 million. And between the interest rates being high and having cash available during that time period, we were able to earn a very high rate of return. Also, our one fund equity account gave us a very good return as well. So together, we had this high interest of about $2.3 million versus in 2022, it was $1.6 million. So you can see it was significantly different. For 2024, we're projecting approximately $2 million, $2.1 million in interest, so still strong for 24. And then in 25, we do expect the interest return to go down significantly because we're going to be using a lot of our reserves in investing in our capital program that we have in those years. So it's kind of a high year for 2023, probably one of the strongest years we'll see, and I just thought I'd point that out for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Questions or comments? Only comment is, Jocelyn, this is an excellent example of the great work and hard work that you do as our CFO. This is an amazing return. Great job, and thank you so much for all you do and looking after our dollars and cents. So we appreciate that. All right, moving on then. We do have a motion that the following consent list items under staff reports Sorry, we did have Kevin Lalonde, our general manager, to speak with respect to the drinking water report. Kevin is ill today, so he won't be speaking to that. Was there anyone else who was going to speak to that, or we'll just move along? All right, thank you, Mr. CAO. So then we do have the motion that the following consent list items under staff reports and all the recommendations contained therein be adopted, excluding items pulled and moved to matters of consideration to be voted on separately. Could I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Moved by Councillor Ego, seconded by Councillor White. All in favor? That carries unanimously. Moving on to item number 11, which is correspondence. We have no items pulled for separate consideration under this, so we do have the motion that the following consent list items under correspondence be received for information, excluding items pulled, and moved to matters for consideration to be voted on separately, of which we have none. Mover and a seconder for this, please. Councillor DeLeo, Councillor Timms. All in favor? Carries unanimously. Moving on to item number 12 is minutes of boards and committees, and there are no items pulled again here. So the following consent list items under minutes and boards and committees be received for information. A mover and a seconder, please. Moved by Councillor Ego, seconded by Councillor White. All in favor? That carries unanimously. And matters for consideration, there were no matters to be pulled or to be looked at separately, so we move on to item number 14, which is recommendations arising from boards and committees. And we do have a report titled Age-Friendly Business Development Project Partnership with County of Simcoe 2025 to the Council meeting of December 12, 2024 be received, and that Council approve the Age-Friendly Community Advisory Committee's AFCAC recommendation and direct staff to review the town's business policy and procedures for age-friendly practices. Questions or comments? Seeing none, mover and a seconder, please. Councillor White, Councillor DeLeo, all in favor? That carries unanimously. Moving on to item number 15, Council requested staff reports. You've seen the list. Any questions or comments on staff reports? All right, seeing none, moving along to item number 16, which is notice of motions, and we have no notice of motion before us today. And then number 17 is closed session. Pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001 as amended, the next portion of the December 12, 2024 Council meeting will move into closed session to consider the following matters. 17.3.1 proposed acquisition of lands, 17.3.2 commercial business negotiations, and 17.3.3 offer to purchase town-owned lands, Lions Court and Ramblewood Drive within the business park. Could I have a mover and a seconder for this to go into closed session? Moved by Councillor White, seconded by Councillor Timms. All in favor? That carries unanimously. We'll now move into closed.
Your worship, you are now live.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Clerk. We've now come out of closed session. Now look to our clerk, our Deputy Clerk for a rise and report.
Thank you, Your Worship. Council entered closed session on December 12th at 12:58 to discuss the following matters. 17.3.1, proposed acquisition of lands in accordance with Section 239C of the Municipal Act. 17.3.2, commercial business negotiations in accordance with Section 239.2F. 17.3.3, offer to purchase town-owned land, Lions Court and Ramblewood Drive within Business Park in accordance with Section 239C, and as a result of these discussions, staff direction was provided.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Clerk. And we'll now move on then to item number 19 on the agenda today, which is bylaws. And we do have a recommended bylaw that the 2024, that bylaws 2024-94, 2024-95, 2024-96, 2024-97, 2024-98, and 2024-99 be received and to be deemed and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed. Can I have a mover and a seconder for this, please? Moved by Councillor Tim, seconded by Councillor Ego. All in favor? That motion carries unanimously, and this meeting is adjourned.